I wanted to let you all know that I speak with Gerry now and then on the phone. He lives in Malaysia. Now and then, different parts of the world.
Yeah,
wherever.
airport lounges of the world.
Yeah. And there's so many things we can talk about. As Giselle said, there's so much background he has. Actually, I met you because of the book that you wrote, Understanding the Global Spa Industry, with Mark Cohen.
That you co-wrote.
Well, I did a chapter,
Yeah.
but he did the book. And so that was, 10 years ago or so.
8, yeah.
And since then, you spoke at one of our summits about the healing traditions of the Islamic world.
Yes.
You spoke about herbs and plants in Africa, and on and on. So there's so many things we can talk about. But we wanted to talk about mental wellness today. And I took some notes the last conversation we had on the phone, and because I wanted to narrow in to make sure that we cover something that would be of interest and is a continuation of what we heard from Jan Emmanuel
Yes.
about happiness and wellness, well-being, and I think can also take us into the future, which is why the title of this conversation is Mental Wellness, the Far Horizon, which is actually your term. So I want to start by mentioning, Giselle said mental wellness, and that's kind of a new term that, in a way, I think we started. Could you explain a little bit about your seeing our industry, your background in mental health, and is there a place for mental wellness?
Yes, thanks, Susie. I think the conceptualizations we've had of wellness to date have been the active pursuit of paths to improving our capacity, developing our full potential, the pursuit of happiness and so on, translate very well to the mental arena. And I think the distinction between mental health and mental wellness is one of a medicalized focus, a focus on illness to a focus on establishing, maintaining, and advancing optimal cognition, memory, emotional fulfillment, and the attributes of mental wellness in a social situation, such as generosity and kindness.
And in a way, do you think that continuing to use the term mental wellness might be a good thing for us to, as a group, do? I mean, I know that we did this with medical tourism and wellness tourism, and I'm sort of seeing that maybe there's that opportunity here.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I've told Susie in the past, for me, the joys of working with the Global Wellness Institute is working with Susie and her ability to spot a trend on the horizon and to fan the flames of that trend and contribute to it becoming a real bushfire. And I think that mental wellness is exactly in that category. When you look at the evidence of the many modalities that are used within the wellness industry, there's a case to be made that there are transformative physiological, neurological effects from these modalities that translate, in some cases, into brain changes, brain development in adulthood, which we'll talk about as we go, that really make the case for a mental wellness category, pathway, constellation of modalities that are distinct from what has been seen as the world of mental health in the past. And I think that for the industry, it's very timely, particularly with the World Health Organization now flagging mental health as one of its top priorities for the coming decade or more, to stick a flag in the ground and say, not only do we care about this, but we're doing something about this because this modality, this modality, this modality, the mental modalities, the nutritional modalities, the physical modalities have evidence behind them as contributing to optimal health and mental well-being?
I think that as people in our world, we have been a little reluctant to think that we might get involved with sort of mental health because we're not psychiatrists, we're
That's
not
right.
psychologists. So we do life coaching and so on. But there's sort of like a little fear to go further. So if there's a category of mental wellness, then we can talk about exercise and the microbiome and the brain and all of the things that we can contribute to through nutrition and exercise and meditation and mindfulness and all of those things that we do feel are making a difference.
Yes.
And without going to a medical place where we're prescribing and advising in that direction. So,
yes. That's right, Susie. I think that it's helpful as a sort of inaugural framework to simply look at mental, nutritional, and physical approaches to promoting mental wellness. So meditation, as Susie said, mindfulness, cognitive activities in aging, the physical approaches, exercise, we know there's a huge amount of evidence is very effective in reducing depression. Yoga as a means of promoting mental health and physical health, reduction of cardiovascular disease, it contributes to balanced insulin regulation, Tai Chi, mental well-being, and the most significant modality in preventing falling in the elderly. Falling in the elderly leads to fear of falling. Fear of falling leads to social isolation. I don't want to go out because I might fall over. Social isolation leads to not going to the shop to buy proper food, leads to nutritional decline, leads to a very steep trajectory to death after a fall. Tai Chi is now recommended by the American and the British gerontological societies to prevent falling in the elderly, and has all of these mental health aspects as well. So mental, nutritional, and physical modalities, and there's evidence for the different modalities in all of these areas in promoting physical health, but also mental health. Now, Susie mentioned the microbiome, which a lot of us are beginning to explore and talk about, which we'll come back to. But you might like to know that we have more microbiota, more little bugs in us than we have of our own body cells. There are more of them than there are of us in us. And about 5 kg of our weight for the average person is them. And there are different microbial universes on our skin, in our gut, in our mouth, in our throat and our nose, and as it turns out, in our brain. One of the very interesting things for me as someone trained in the mental health field is very new research looking at schizophrenia, which of course is the absolute end of the severe mental pathology continuum. And it may not be a continuum, but classification. And there's one study, very recent study, looked at schizophrenic patients and found that in 10% of the randomly selected patients in that study, there was presence of gut microbiota in the brain. Something from the gut had got into the brain and triggered a catastrophic reaction by the brain. This fits with new research that's really well documenting what is known as the gut-brain axis. You can Google that. It's important for us to know about because in the field of mental wellness, nutrition, and the health of the gut, we've been hearing from the Maya group, a very compelling set of presentations. We know from Ayurvedic medicine, Dr. Sharkinger has referred to some of this, that the gut is of central importance in these systems. for promoting health. Now, 10% of people with clinically diagnosed schizophrenia have a gut biota in their brain, microbe in their brain. Other very new research has found presence of candida from the throat and the nose in the brain of schizophrenic patients. Bugs, not neurochemistry, not neuroanatomy, bugs. Again, some traditional medical systems, I think of Ayurveda because I've studied it and know it well, promote gargling with sesame oil. They promote nasal lavage, washing, clearing, cleansing. When you look at these findings, you can see the really deep value of highly informed historic cultural traditions of health and wellness. I think looking, we have a big focus on detox. I just want to say to you that detox is only the first stage in particularly the Asian traditions of health and wellness. Detox is just the first stage. Renourishment, rebuilding the gut microbiome in a whole range of different ways is what it's all about. It's not all about detox. And when we talk about detox, there's a sort of conspiracy, a collusion of understanding where we all assume we all know what we're talking about. But when we talk about detox, what are we deing? What is this tox that we are deing? Do we ever think about that? And we don't as a rule. So detox teas have a huge market. Detox treatments have a huge market. But it's time now, in the context of these discoveries of the gut-brain axis, quite apart from the gut microbiome generally, to start asking, what are the specifics of the tox? How effective is the D? How effective is the renourishment and the rebuilding of a balanced and healthy microbiome? These are the questions for the industry to start asking and seeking answers about. And I want to congratulate the Global Wellness Institute here because they offer free for all of us an evidence base in wellnessevidence.com. It is there if you want to look, a lot of this material.
Thank you for mentioning. It is true. I was at a conference maybe a month ago, and I was the person that was representing wellness, and then there were all these medical people, and it was a discussion where people asked questions. And it was so interesting because they asked the questions mostly of the doctors, and whatever the question was, the doctors ended up getting back to, well, it'll be exercise and nutrition and stress reduction. Their answers were all what we do in the wellness space.
Right. That's right.
So I know we have a lot of relevance, but not everybody thinks about the evidence base really being part of both wellness and...
I think it's time. It's time to start thinking about drawing on the evidence that is there for you. You don't have to go, being your own research assistant exploring for this. It's there at wellnessevidence.com, and it's being updated. I think perhaps Susie... could be helpful to get some researchers to do meta-analyses or summaries of the research, perhaps even as a service, maybe on a fee-for-service basis for industry sectors, looking at summaries of nutritional data, of cognitive modalities, of physical modalities for special populations, for the elderly, for handicapped groups, for children, and so on.
Because there is another step now relating this evidence base not just to physical but the mental part.
Yeah, that's right.
So let's just transition for a minute because you brought with you some film clips, just short little clips. Yeah. And by the way, because the speaker who is to come after us is not able to make it, we're going to take her time. So Can we have that?
Can I just
why
do
don't you set it up?
Yeah, a
set it
little
up.
context first.
Yeah, please.
Jan Emanuel did an absolutely virtuoso presentation this morning.
Totally agree.
And I have to say, as an aging Oxford academic, I was sitting there thinking, my, these Oxford boys are getting smart these days. But one of the things Jan Emanuel did so eloquently and insightfully was bridge the data from personal happiness to workplace outcomes to bottom line through to policy. And he referenced Bhutan as taking early steps in this field of putting happiness at the forefront of national planning. I had the good fortune to be in Bhutan in May and had the opportunity to speak with the former Prime Minister, Mr. Jigme Tinne, who was instrumental in bringing the UN Happiness Day and contributing to the momentum leading to the World Happiness Report. I had a chance to sit down and talk with him about Bhutan's Gross National Happiness Index. So let's have that clip and then we'll talk a bit more.
Put happiness at the center of development strategy and how this takes place. And as Prime Minister, I know this was a major engine for your development strategy in your time of nation building.
Well, Bhutan has pursued development with the belief that the purpose of development has to be something far more than simply promoting economic or material growth. Mm-hmm. That the need of the human individual is not only material, but mental, spiritual, emotional. Mm-hmm. And that development, as pursued in the conventional way, has not given any rise in this ultimate desire of every human being, which is happiness. Mm-hmm. And that was mainly because the focus was entirely on the economic and not on the other, or perhaps more or equally important needs of the human individual. Mm-hmm.
We have more. And I just want to here acknowledge the Ministry of Wellness initiative of the Global Wellness Institute, chaired by Guillaume Lefebvre and Renee Moorfield. I'm happy with some of our colleagues here to be a member of this working group. And the idea is to bring together examples like this of national and regional and city policy on wellness, so that we have, in a sense, an evidence base of policy for other policymakers to follow. And this and a number of other interviews are online with the Global Wellness Institute under the Ministry of Wellness initiative. So you can look at these interviews in more detail if you're interested in policy. But you can see here that he's sticking a flag in the ground and saying, we have cultural traditions, they're a Buddhist country, that place the value of individual happiness above everything else. And we are going to absolutely require that all economic development plans go through a review process deciding, does this contribute to individual happiness? Does this contribute to family, community, and societal happiness? And if it doesn't, we're not going to go down that road. So the development is slower economically, but they've put a total ban on mining in the country. Now, in a conversation Jan Emanuel and I had, Jan Emanuel pointed out, mining actually contributes to economic growth and to personal well-being associated with economic growth. So are they missing out? They're in the Himalayas. How much mineral wealth has been pushed up through tectonic forces to near the surface for them? Their answer to that is, our environment is our identity. If we're going to pull the minerals out, we have to take the forests off first. We are not going to do that. If it means we develop more slowly, we can live with that. So I think this whole mental wellness, happiness, translating into national policy is really cause for a serious rethink of the global paradigm of development. It's quite big.
And I find that what was so helpful in it is because the initiative, you went and interviewed, each of the people in the initiative went and interviewed someone else. And there's 2 interviews there from Japan. And one from the mayor of Imperial Beach, who was with us last year. And those interviews, really, I got it after seeing those interviews, because I'm seeing, and kind of what Jan was saying, now at the political level, at the government level, they're having these conversations. And let's face it, happiness and wellness, well-being, they're a little fuzzy, words. We have a hard time defining them. And so, you talk to government people or corporations, it's, people don't have a lot of time to listen to all of this.
Yeah.
So in those short little clips that are on wellnessevidence.com under the Minister of Happiness initiative, it was powerful. And I think suggesting for other people to see it, people who you're trying to convince that maybe there's an element of this.
It's a resource for you. It's the policy equivalent of wellnessevidence.com for research.
Now, I want to end with one other topic, which, interestingly enough, you were here yesterday when we had Omer up here, and he was talking about the, big players and innovation and not innovation. And then we had a little disagreement. And this is something that you had said to me on the phone, and I'm going to read it to you, and I want you to explain it a little bit. There is a difference in innovation from incremental innovation to transformational innovation.
Yep. This is a conversation Susie and I had. And essentially, what we were looking at, Susie said, what constitutes innovation for the industry in the sense of mental wellness? And my response is, well, which part of the industry? Because the industry has obviously different players, different categories of players, but it also has very big players who have to be constantly conscious of bottom line, ROIs, and so on. But then I mentioned to Susie the example of 5 elements, Puriya Himsa in Bali, which, this has been confidential until this very moment. I'm authorized to mention this in the context that they were approached by New World Development in Hong Kong, which owns the Rosewood Group and the Hyatt hotels in Hong Kong, and one of the biggest conglomerates. It's not just a developer in Asia. This tiny little crucible of Balinese wellness outside Ubud, they sent mystery shoppers in for a year watching them, because 5 Elements was winning award after award after award for this tiny little place with 2 passionate enthusiasts for Balinese healing, Kiko and Lara Tatrielli, bringing Balinese healers into their place, not as staff, but the same model that we were hearing from Brenner's Park and Spa, let the doctors be private practitioners within the context, same model, let the traditional healers come in and be private practitioners under your umbrella with certain organizational standards. And they watched them for a year, and then they surfaced. And they said, we've looked at everyone in the region, and we want you to be part of, I think, what is it? An 8 or 13 hectare development that they've now almost completed in Sai Kung in the mainland part of Hong Kong, which is a tennis and golf club, country club system. And 5 Elements has created the Spa and Wellness Center. We did I'm an advisor to them. We did a whole lot of research looking at Balinese healing foods, so this could go in. We looked at royal traditions of healing, as opposed to village traditions which Five Elements had been built on. We looked at royal traditions of design to take those across, so there would be some differentiation. And the point of mentioning this is that the really big players or the really big thinkers can afford to go for what might seem an unsafe shift from a tiny little place outside Ubud in Bali to, front of stage in one of the most exclusive facilities for the billionaires of Hong Kong and China as their wellness destination. So the point of mentioning this is that it's the boundary riders to look at. Edie didn't like it in the Café Conversación when I used the word cultural creatives. Her response was, lots of cultural creatives commit suicide and are miserable their whole lives, and so on. It's not the suicidal cultural creatives I'm urging you to look at. It's the ones who have passion and have successfully translated their passion into the wellness equivalent of a Silicon Valley garage. These are the folks you really need to look at if you're a group, if you're a chain, because like New World and Five Elements, these are the ones on the horizon. These are the far horizons. What is the essence of the far horizon that New World was looking at? They were looking at deep Asian cultural traditions. They were looking at Asian spiritual, nutritional, physical, mental healing modalities. They were looking at authenticity that was based on deep appreciation of cultural values and tradition. That to them was the far horizon. That was the frontier. And I believe that there are many examples of this out there, but it's a matter of having your ear to the ground, your eyes on the horizon, and spotting the wellness industry's equivalent of the Silicon Valley garages, because these are the future billion-dollar ideas.
And when Omer spoke yesterday, that I remembered our conversation, because he's saying, we're looking, there's money to invest, and we're looking for something that's replicable, that's authentic. And it made me think, well, it's probably maybe tinkering in a garage. It's not maybe something big out there. It's probably something that, has a nugget. And so I would just add, and then I think we're going to go to the last little clip, that we've been talking about the future. I mean, our industry's come a long way, 10 years, all of the things we've talked about. We now need to really make sure that people who come to our places are getting helped, that they do change, that they're transformed, that they get the results that we've been talking about, marketing, promoting, but that now people are finding balance and becoming more healthy mentally, physically, and spiritually. I think, and that's not so easy to do. It's easier to preach about it and talk about it than it is to help people, or even ourselves, and it's probably needs to start with ourselves, that we need to find that. And I know you have found a great balance, and I know you meditate, and and I've done better over, when I think about 10 years ago, I've done better, and I think that's what we need to do for ourselves and then for others.
Yes.
Would you say that's maybe
Yes, Susie.
the horizon?
And I think that part of that far horizon is something that needs more thought in the wellness industry, and that is post-visit support and follow-on. I think it's a big opportunity. Let me give you an example. Research on massage in treating anxiety, depression, negative mood, and blood pressure has found that a single treatment of massage lowers anxiety and depression, does not do anything for negative mood, and does not do anything for blood pressure. A repeated program of massage treatment reduces anxiety, depression, negative mood, and blood pressure. Now, I can give you many other examples, time doesn't allow, but I'd invite you to think about that. The opportunity for continuity of service, particularly in nutrition, if you're giving nutritional guidelines, the opportunity to have ongoing nutritional advice. It can be done online. That can be built into your service fee. But I think maintaining the helping relationship is part of
Great
New
opportunity.
Horizon. Yeah.
And like Jan said, going beyond our top small percentage that we've been
Well,
looking
can I
at.
just make a comment on
Yeah.
that? I've often felt that, the downtime in spas, we all know, therapists are sitting around at certain times of day, and in your communities, there'll be an old folks home somewhere. There'll be some other community facility. How uplifting is it for someone to have even a 20 or 30-minute facial with 15 minutes travel time each way for your therapist as part of your corporate social outreach? Complimentary, just service like that. It's touch, it's something you've got, you don't have to have downtime. And I think reaching out into the community like that, there's so many other ways it can be done. Really bringing wellness to the community, not simply making a donation or sponsoring a charity or whatever, but taking what you do out. What essentially Jan Emanuel was calling for, the democratization of wellness.
And I think when I think about 10 years ago, we have definitely done much better. When I think of global
You
wellness,
hear all the cancer initiatives.
Global
yesterday.
Wellness Day and all the initiatives that
Yes.
we heard, the collaborations. So I think we're on our way. We might just need to, speed it up a little.
Yep.
Gerry, thank you. Let's have the final clip and. Do we have that final piece of?
Can we have the clip?
If we don't,
In fact, happiness is a state of being that cannot be achieved nor sustained without compassion. Happiness is a state of being that can only be achieved when all those around you are happy. Your happiness is conditioned by the degree of happiness of those around you. And in an interdependent world, it means everybody.
Excellency, I think we'll stop there. That's a fine note to end on. I'd like to thank you very much for speaking to us for the Global Wellness Institute and the Global Wellness Summit. And I think we'll celebrate with a cup of tea.
Yes. Tashi Delek, as we say.
Tashi Delek. Thank you.